Time, guys, let's march on down this card. In the bantamweight division, Pedro Munhoz and Sugar Sean O'Malley had a clash, and it ended up a no contest because at 3 minutes and 9 seconds in the second round, Sean O'Malley kind of raked the eyes of Pedro Munhoz in a defensive sort of stiff arm, and the fight ended because Pedro Munhoz said he couldn't see. The doctor told the ref, and the ref waved it off. Mark, give your assessment of what was going down thus far in that fight in the first round and how the second round was playing out.
Yeah, this one sucked. Just the biggest buzzkill imaginable. You're trying to see if this dude, Sean O'Malley, can justify all the hype and break through, and you're all ready to find out what the answer is, and then you don't get a yes, you don't get a no, you just get nothing. So that sucked. He didn't even really do anything wrong. Like, his fingers were straight up. It was just kind of a freak thing that happened where the positioning still managed to get the finger in the eye, even though he had his fingers straight up. Obviously, these things can happen with MMA gloves. I will say there were a lot of takes, and are still a lot of takes, even from Sean himself, which kind of disappointed me. I mean, it made me laugh, but also disappointed me a little bit, saying that Pedro Munhoz lost and that he was trying to get out of the fight and blah, blah, blah. And I just got to say, I don't buy that for 1 second. That was Pedro Munhoz's 28th professional fight. He has fought 5 former world champions. He has never been finished in any fashion. KO, TKO, submission, never been finished in any way, shape, or form in his entire career. You're telling me that man didn't have other opportunities to get out of fights if he had that kind of, heart in him? He was not trying to get out of that fight. He's not the type of guy that wants out. And you can see pictures of him from later in the night where his eye is still closed. So I don't think he's walking around doing this in pictures. So, the guy's eye was just fucked. I know it may not have looked like much, but eyes are weird. We've seen enough of these things in MMA to know that. Like, You don't have to hit an eye in some deathly looking way to fuck the eye up. So, he was hurt. As for the fight, Pedro was basically spamming calf kicks, just like I thought he would. To O'Malley's credit, he was checking a lot of them, like a lot. I was pretty impressed by how well he was doing. It was slow going in there. There's no denying that, but it did seem like O'Malley was maybe starting to figure Pedro out towards the end of that round 1, early part of round 2, but before the poke happened. Whereas I'm not sure Pedro had much else to go to besides those calf kicks. Granted, if Pedro had won round 1, which he may have, it's tough because of how many were getting checked. It's tough to tell. Maybe if he could have eked out another round, he would have got that decision, even though it seemed like O'Malley was figuring him out. Who knows? You can't really tell where it was going to go. And it sucks that we got robbed of finding out.
Omar, out of the 3 of us, you have thrown and caught the most leg kicks. So give us your sort of assessment of that first round especially. Munhoz, like Mark said, was throwing a lot of leg kicks. O'Malley was checking a lot of them. O'Malley, in the post-fight press conference, was very assertive in his stance on that. He thought that any judge that scored that first round for Pedro Munhoz was an idiot and said, I would like those judges to kick me in the leg and I'll check it and see how they feel. So what would your take?
Yeah, when Mark was just talking about that, it did just cross my mind. I wonder if judges even consider checking kicks
I
as
always think
a
about
positive for the other person, because I don't actually think that they do. It doesn't look like much to the naked eye. It just kind of looks like your foot's in the air, but you're still getting kicked. The reality is that shit hurts everybody. Checking a kick does not hurt. That shit hurts. It doesn't matter whether you're kicking the person or getting kicked. Checking a kick hurts everybody. It just hurts the person generally kicking more, especially if you do it right. He did check a lot of kicks, but at the same time, checking a kick is not responding, right? What I've learned in my own Muay Thai journey is whenever somebody tries to kick me, I check the kick and I return immediately, whether it's a body kick or a leg kick. I don't just check kicks and then continue to move around. No one's getting off with a free kick on me. Like, check the kick, boom, return immediately. And it just didn't seem like that was ever on O'Malley's mind. I don't know if you should need 2 rounds to figure out somebody in a fight, right? Especially when you're not changing the tactic, you're not pushing the pace. He was getting leg kicked to hell in that fight. Checking and kick, yes, absolutely. But again, it still wears on his body. Like, it's not like he doesn't feel them at all. And it really depends on whose calves are a little or more conditioned. If Pedro Munhoz has, and he does, have these tree trunks for legs against O'Malley's sort of like branches for legs, it's very possible that O'Malley felt them more than Pedro Munhoz felt them. That is a definite possibility, and it's just more durable. But the reality was, as though that was really the biggest talking point of the entire fight, was really the leg kicks and not much else. It was hard to figure out. I didn't like the take that, O'Malley was running away with this fight, or even that Pedro Munhoz was running away with this fight. The fight hadn't been that eventful, even up until that point. I was actually I didn't realize what time there was in the fight, so I didn't know if it was going to go to a no contest or if it was going to go to a technical decision. Because if it was going to a technical decision, I was like, this shit's going to be a draw or something. It's going to end up really weird. Because it really wasn't all cut and dry as I think some people were really making it out to be. Sean O'Malley is going to be Sean O'Malley. He's going to say what he needs to say. 100% finish rate, and I'm still 16-0 or whatever the fucking number is now. But that's neither here nor there. We all know what happened. I'm curious, and I'm curious to know what you guys think. Like, do we rematch that? Do we run that one back? Because I'm still interested. I'm still very much interested in how that fight would go. But do we do that, or do we just give them somebody else? And I should mention that Pedro Munhoz has a scratched cornea. That has been confirmed. So he does have an actual injury to the cornea of his eye. Yeah. So don't give the man shit.
Yeah. I've scratched my cornea before, about a decade ago when I was working a summer job at landscaping. Much more embarrassing story than Pedro Munhoz. Yeah. But Mark, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that I'm in the same boat. I am intrigued to want to see a rematch. Like, I want to see who figures who out, and if Munhoz really doesn't have anything to offer him besides the calf kicks, and if O'Malley, now that he's been in there, can land a lot more, that he kind of has gotten a feel. Like, I'm curious to see how it plays out if they do it again. My concern, well, first off, I don't know how long Munhoz is out for. O'Malley may not be able to wait. If it's a long time, obviously it's not happening. I also feel like the UFC might just say we're going to go another way because it was a bit of a staring contest at times, and I think they might say we don't want to risk that happening again with someone who they have as much promotion behind as Sean O'Malley. So I don't know if we're actually going to get to see that one again.
I want to respond to Mark's point from before about Pedro Munhoz not taking the easy road out because he got poked in the eye. I have to say, when I was watching in real time, I kind of felt like, man, Pedro Munhoz, he does seem oddly complacent with this situation. Like, he was just kind of standing there. And who was the ref? I think it was Herzog. Was like, you have time. Hey, you have time.
Yeah.
Let me get you a cold wet towel.
He's like, no,
very specific, cold wet towel. And he didn't want the towel. Juxtapose in the main event. Jared Cannonier caught an eye poke, and he was like, give me that towel. He was rubbing his eye, he put the towel in his eye. He was like, I'm good to go. That's the kind of response, I guess, as a fan, you look for a guy when he gets an eye poke, especially an eye poke that seemed as light as what happened with Pedro Munhoz. But to your point, Mark, I think it should not be overlooked. Eyes are weird, and they're not meant to be touched. Eyes don't like to be touched. You can't condition your eye to get poked. Like, it's not like a shin. So who knows?
I do agree with what you said, that it felt kind of like, man, like, it's it just like that? Like, you're not going to try, you're not going to blink it out, you're not going to go to the towel.
Right. You just seemed resigned.
It's very hard for me to think Pedro Munhoz wanted out of a fight, so my brain 100%. Just goes to, he must feel that this shit is very fucked up and know that he's very compromised.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me ask you a question, Mike, because I'm thinking about all, like, the little, things I've gotten in my eye and times that it's been difficult for me to open my eye and shit like that. But there's nothing actually wrong with my eye. When you got your cornea scratched, could you open your eye?
No. I mean, oh my God, it's a million years ago. Again, embarrassing story. Working for my cousin's landscaping business when I was like 20, I had a weed whacker, and they didn't have enough eyewear to give me, and they were like, "Michael, just go weed whack behind these apartment units." And I caught like 3 pebbles like in my eye, like consecutively in like 10 minutes, to the point where like, yeah, my shit was fucked up. I was like, I think I told my cousin, and he like didn't believe me. I was like, dude, my eye is fucked up. I kept like shooting pebbles into my eye from this fucking weed whacker. And I went to the eye doctor, and he, put me under like the microscope thing, and he was like, you have a scratched cornea. And he gave me some drops, and like over the course of a couple of days, like it kind of slowly felt better. But initially I like could not open my eye. It felt like there was a splinter in my eye, which there wasn't. He was like, it's just a scratched eye.
And that's what I'm wondering, because at the end of the day, the thing that keeps going in my head is the only person that actually knew what that felt like was Pedro Munhoz. And if Pedro Munhoz was like, this doesn't feel right, I know what it's like to get poked in the eye, that's not what this is. There is something wrong with my eye. And to be fair, when he got there, they weren't just like, no, it wasn't that bad. They were like, nah, bro, you got a scratch cornea. Like that shit, there's a little scratch on that thing. So
it's just, I mean,
he said
as
they
a
had
diehard
to put
fan,
something in it in the hospital to even get it to open.
Right. Because your muscles just like reflexively protect and close around it.
Yeah.
And your brain can't reason with them.
But that's what I think.
I'm just imagining.
You know how many times these guys probably get poked in the eyes in their careers through training and everything?
Oh my God.
I think it's exactly that. I think he was like, my shit is fucked, and I know it's fucked, and I can't fight.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
As a fan, as a diehard who can think back in my mind to many other fights, you think about the time that like Cormier got knuckle deep from Stipe.
Yeah.
And that eye poke in, I think, their third fight or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he said it, though. He said he was seeing double the whole rest of the fight.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.